Like I said, okay, this class is all about learning the effects, okay, of media on society, okay, and all of these theories that you have been learning, okay, mass society, globalization, cultural imperialism, mass culture, all of this is just trying different ways, okay, of trying to explain how media has changed our culture, okay, changed the way we live, okay. I'm sorry, I don't know, maybe it's afternoon class. Okay, maybe I need to eat some bananas or something, okay? Sorry. Now, point is, okay, so it's different ways of understanding, okay, of the power of the media, okay, in changing a society. And it's usually through culture. And unfortunately, when there's this change in culture, it also means, okay, a change in politics, economics, and it's also trying to show us that usually the media comes with it a particular power or control or domination by another culture, and at the moment, most of these culture are Western and American, okay? Now, another point of view or another concept that we will talk about is Orientalism, okay? The Oriental. I'm sure you've heard the term Oriental before, okay? It's like a place, but you've never known where it is. Okay, you've heard, okay, sometimes in design you have Oriental art or Oriental rock, okay, or you go for Oriental food. But what does it mean? Okay, now the term Orientalism, okay, you can see, okay, the cover here. Okay, this is an example of an Oriental art. Okay, what is an Oriental art? Okay, Oriental art is usually, okay, an art representing the life, okay, or the environment, okay, of a culture of the other or group of people that are not Western or white. Okay, so the idea of Orientalism was introduced by this guy. His name is Edward Syed. Okay, so you don't know him, Edward Syed? Okay, of course, most of us do not know him because he's not an actor, not a singer, not a pop artist. Okay, so Edward Syed has been considered one of the, what we call it, most significant philosopher of our time. Okay, why do we have to talk about Syed? Because the background of Syed also influences the idea of Orientalism. Okay, and because I think also it's important for you to acknowledge, okay, thinkers, philosophers that are not necessarily white American. Okay. So who is Edward Syed? Okay, Edward Syed is a Palestinian. Okay, he's a Palestinian, but he is a Christian Palestinian. Okay, he's not a Muslim, but he is still an Arab man, a Palestinian. Okay. So he is obviously an intelligent person, but unfortunately, because in Palestine, it's never safe, he moved from Palestine to the US, okay? And then, of course, he became a professor. Okay, so Syed is a Palestinian exile. Means he is started out in the US also as a immigrant. Okay? So why? Here I want to show you that Syed is actually someone who culturally is very different. So he understands the influence of culture because when he was in Palestine, he was a Christian. So he was still a minority. And when he went to the US, okay, he was an Arab, Palestinian somehow. So again, a minority. Okay? But Syed became successful that he ended up becoming a professor of English and comparative literature at Columbia University. So Columbia University is one of the Ivory League. That means it's one of the best uni in the US, okay, and of course in the world also. Okay, so unfortunately Syed passed away in 2003, okay. But here you can see, okay, he's a professor of English. All right, that means he studies literature. Maybe some of you here from Dell, okay? So he studies literature, but his impact, okay, when he talked about Orientalism, okay, he was able to impact politics, the idea of economy, media, and communication. Okay, how come? So this is what we will discuss. He's considered a Western philosopher, not really a Muslim philosopher, because he studies, okay, in the West. Okay, he was trained in the West also. Okay, so he generally deals with post-colonialism, post-modernism. Okay, post-colonialism means after colonialism. All right. So basically, post-colonialism, you study the differences, okay, or the effects of colonialism on society. Okay, Occidentalism and Orientalism. So don't worry, all of this we will discuss today. Okay, postmodernism you should already know by now. Okay, so here Orientalism. So this is his book. Okay, but this is the 25th anniversary edition. But this is the book that is considered one of the most powerful academic books, scholarly books that have successfully managed to explain, okay, the influence of Western culture on everybody in this world. Okay. So here, so Orientalism was written by Syed in 1978. Okay. So according to Syed, Orientalism is a constellation of false assumptions underlying Western attitudes towards the Middle East. Okay, here. All right, it's not necessarily the Middle East. It's basically any culture that is not Western, okay? So Orientalism is actually a critical tool. That means it's a way of criticizing, okay, the way Westerners, okay, or Western writers write about cultures that are not Western. What does this mean? Okay, now let's go back to the background just now. So like I said, Syed is a professor of English. So what does he do? He studies literature. So he reads literature. So he has been reading lots of classical literatures. You know, some of you maybe are interested, you know, you read Jane Austen, you read Shakespeare. So this is what he does. But whenever he reads all this literature and he studies art as well, okay, he found a pattern. He found that whenever these white, okay, poets or writers, when they write about cultures that are not theirs, that means not Western culture, not their original culture, they will always make this other culture as exotic, mysterious, okay, not clear. Okay, what does this mean? Okay, here for example, you look at the cover of this book, you would think, okay, which culture is this? Arab culture? Which culture? Which culture? It looks like an Arab culture, right? Okay, maybe because of the art behind here. Does it look like an Arab place, Arabic place, Middle Eastern place? Now, this is an example of an Oriental art. Okay, in the 1800s, early 1800s, there were many white people, right? Colonialists, they were coming all over the world and dominating the world. Okay, so they have experience with this new world that they do not know. Okay, so the way they understand this different world is based on their own, what we call it, culture. Here, this is an example of an 1800s art. Okay, this is how they drew. Okay, they try to conceptualize a Middle Eastern or Arabic culture. But when they do it, you see, what is Arab or what is Middle Eastern about this image? It's usually just the background, okay? But what you get to see, do you think this image is appropriate?
That looks like more of a Arabic culture than Middle Eastern culture.
Okay. It looks, you know, the boy with the snakes entertaining old man. It's quite very disturbing. but I'm pretty sure you've seen this kind of images all somewhere. All right, maybe you've seen images or art of how they drew belly dancers in the 1800s. Okay, when you see art that is depicting Arab society. Okay, so here is an example of when white people, okay, of course, I'm going to be very specific to white Westerners because this is the study that Scythe did. But you must understand that the idea of Orientalism, okay, it can be broader, right? It's not just specific to white American. It's just always about power struggles, okay? So here, according to Scythe, is an example of how white people at that time, in the 1800s, the colonialists, they see the others, the rest, the Arabs. The Arabs here, how do you see them? Probably they're very artistic, but very disturbing, isn't it, right? Very not ethical. You know, they see naked boys as entertainment. Can you understand what I'm trying to say here? Because this painting is a depiction of the Arab culture from the perspective of the white artists. Can you follow what I'm trying to say or not? Understand? Okay? So this is the issue. This is Orientalism. Orientalism is this lens or this way of looking at the rest of the world. Okay? This is the lens or the way or the paradigm that is being used by the white Western imperialist, colonialist when they look at people who are not like them. Okay, that when they look like at the Arabs, this is what they see. Can you understand or not? They see a mystical, exotic, all right, things that they don't understand, but they never would depict the Arab like, for example, as an intelligent business person. Okay, or a scientist. They don't show that kind of images or write about those in their stories. Okay, like for example, another example would be the Jungle Book. The Jungle Book, some of you may have read it, but I'm sure most of you did not. Most of you may have watched the movie, but you know what it is about, the Jungle Book. It's about what? It's about a small boy named Mowgli. Where is he? Where is the story situated at? The Jungle Book. Don't know. Okay, you can Google it.
I think South Asia.
Yes, it's supposed to be in India.
But then some of the characters depicted in there were named after Middle Eastern names and had Middle Eastern looks, like when he found the village.
Okay, but the point is, when we talk about the Jungle Book, the story is about an Indian boy who lives in the jungle, who speaks to animals. The snakes can speak. The tigers can speak. Although this is a nice fantasy story, but point is what? Okay, the point is this story was written early 1900s, okay? And this book is being read by the whole world, okay? And the whole world will get the idea that India is a very mysterious, mystical place. Okay? When we talk about India, you remember of people living in the jungle. Just like when they depict Africa. Okay, why do we, then unfortunately this lens that they use, okay, to depict India, okay, is being adopted by the rest of the world. Because we read Western book, we study Western textbook, we watch Western television. Okay, so when we read Jungle Book and when we watch Jungle Book, this is our idea of India. Can you understand what we mean by Orientalism? Which is actually like a lens that we take to look at the rest of the world. But unfortunately, this lens, you know what's a lens, right? We used to watch other things, okay? Unfortunately, this lens, okay, is already defined by the Western ideas. Okay? For example, what? If you use the Western lens to look at how the Malays eat, you know, or how Asians eat, They eat with their hands. And then the prophets even say it's better for you to lick your fingers, right? To clean up. Now, if you take the Western lens, what would that look like? Yeah, very individualized, very barbaric. You know, they eat with their hands and then they lick it some more. Unfortunately, okay, but if you were to think about it, right, who decides what is wrong and right?
Okay. I mean, people eat burgers with their hands.
Okay, who decides that eating with fork and spoon is better than eating with your hands? Okay, you should decide for yourself or based on your own culture. But unfortunately, all of us have been somewhat forced to adopt one particular lens at looking at things. Okay, so this is Orientalism. Okay, this is what Syed tried to tell us. But he discovered this by reading classic literatures, looking at classical arts. Okay, because you remember, I am an Arab, but I don't really have this culture in my society. Okay, historically, my grandfather did not watch young boys playing with snakes. So how come this is the image that other people get about the Arab culture? Okay. So if you see the Orient map, you know, traditionally in the old days, during the time of colonials, you know, they draw the map also biasly, that they will make Europe as the center of the world. Okay, but now we know that Europe is very small. It's such a small continent, but it was able to control the rest of the world. Why? Through these ideas. Can you follow? All right. So the Orient map. Okay. So the term Orient is derived from the Latin word oriens, meaning the east. So actually, okay, when Syed wrote his book, he did really specifically focus on the Middle East. Okay, but today we can take his idea, okay, and try to apply it, okay, because the Orient could be anything, a place that is not Western. That China could be the Orient, because China is the other when compared to the West and the colonials. Okay, so there is specifically no there is no specific geographical area when we talk about the Orient. It's actually a concept. Can you follow? All right, a concept representing the others. So the Orient here is mostly a European invention. Why European? Because they were the colonials. Okay, they were the ones coming and, you know, colonializing the rest of the world. Okay, so the European usually via literature, okay, would portray the other people, okay, as something that is exotic, romantic. Okay, they talk about memories and landscapes. Now, what's the problem? Okay, when they want to talk about when they portray us this way, the problem is that means when they portray, okay, the Chinese culture, the Malay culture, it's never based on our advantage or based on our intelligence, okay, or based on our unique differences. It always based on something that is mysterious. You understand what I'm trying to say? Okay, when they talk about India, they talk about beautiful places, colorful saris. But they don't talk about the Indians were the first to discover, or the Indians were good people who were good at mathematics and science. No. Okay? So according to Syed, when they make these differences, okay, between the Orient is the rest of the world, and the Occident. So the Occident here is the Western colonizer. Okay? So they've already created what we call it, a distinctive differences between the Occident and the Orient. The Occident here are the Westerners who learn about these people. And they are unfortunately, the smarter one. Because they were the ones that studied us and they define what we do. Okay? And the Orient remains something that is mysterious. So, Orientalism, okay, then mostly, okay, all of this art, all this medium, this literature was written to show European American power over the Orient. and the mystification of the other. What is mystify? You know, misty, cannot see, right? Mystify, okay, is blur, right? So when they talk about the others, okay, they talk about the Indians, they talk about the Arabs, okay? When you talk about, oh, the Arabs were beautiful, the Arabs were artistic, the Arabs were good at dancing, all of these are just very mystified. That means they are not clear qualities, okay? So here, basically, they say this is one of the ways how Westerners, colonialists, maintain their power. Okay? They maintain their power by showing the rest of the world according to their lens, the way they understand the world. Okay? Have you seen images of the Red Indians? You know, Red Indians, everyone here we call the Red Indians. It's actually a very derogative term. Who do we call the Red Indians? They are the Native Americans. Okay, they are actually the owner of the land. Okay, I'm not sure about the authenticity of this history, but accordingly, okay, who discovered America? Who discovered the land?
Is Christopher
Columbus, right? So according to the legend, okay, so Christopher Columbus, he was an explorer, right? So he was looking for India. You know, because in the old days, the explorers, they all want to go to India because they want to get the spice, right? Because spice used to be very expensive. So he went to India, but he got detoured, you know, he got lost, and he landed in this land, America. But of course, they don't call it America just yet. And he thought that land was India. So he found the natives there. Okay? So the natives there, that's why they call them the Red Indians, because they were not really Indians, but Columbus thought they were the Indians. Okay? Now, how do they depict the Native Americans? Usually very mysterious, right? They believe in spirits. Okay, they have long hair. Sometimes they don't wear clothes. Okay? So when we look at them using the Oriental lens, we feel that the natives are usually, you know, underdeveloped, not intelligent, isn't it, right? And this is how we tend to see natives all around the world, because they like to live their life in a way that is different from how the Western modernity would propose. Can you follow what I am trying to say?
Yes, madam.
And because of that, we will only see natives as backwards, as problematic, as not as good as us, not as good as the Western culture. Okay, and this is the reason that is being used by Westerners in the old days to colonize the world. Oh yes, Nabila?
So maybe if so basically the fact that a white person from Europe was the one that came and colonized America, it's safe to say that the movie Pocahontas, where the male Caucasian character acted as a hero for Pocahontas, it can be said that this movie was made that romanticized the genocide of the Native Americans.
Yes, very good. That's a very good, because that is a very good example movie. Pocahontas, Aladdin is always given as the example of Oriental movie. Because all of us, we learn about Pocahontas through watching an American cartoon written by the white man, voiced by the white woman, produced by the white person. You get what I'm trying to say? This is what we mean by Orientalism. The film is about the Native American Pocahontas, but the story is not written by the native, him or herself. The story is told through the perspectives of the white person. So that's why in Pocahontas, who's the hero? Not the native.
Is the white guy.
The white guy.
The native guy that was supposed to be her husband was portrayed as barbaric and wanted to only kill people.
And then what else? And then Pocahontas wants to live a life that is free, just like the life proposed by the Western culture.
Yes, madam.
Okay? So as the same thing, you watch Aladdin, right? All of you? Okay? Aladdin, all right? It's not Aladdin, it's Aladdin. Okay, and then Princess Jasmine. But it's supposed to depict Arab culture. Okay, what happens if an Arab woman dressed like Jasmine?
She will get a beating.
Okay, off with her head. Okay? Okay? And then what else? So when they talk about Arab movies, okay, then Princess Jasmine have a talking tiger. Okay, and she too wants to break away from her culture. Right? Jasmine wants to break away from her culture. Mulan wants to break away from her culture. Pocahontas wants to break away from her culture. They all want freedom.
And the only thing that I can see in these movies are, except for Mulan, but like Pocahontas and Aladdin, is that they make little girls think that they need a man to break free and be their best selves.
Okay. All right. The notion of man trying to save them. Okay.
Yeah.
But of course, today you can see the differences, right? Because they're trying to be more inclusive. Then now the princesses are saving the prince. Okay. Okay. But that's another story altogether. But here we're talking about the lens that is being used. Why is it called Oriental movies? Because the movie is called Mulan, but it is written not by a Chinese. And it's a story, yes, there's a story about Fa Mulan, but it has been twisted, so it has some Western flavors. Okay? So this is what we mean by Orientalism. Okay? So what happens here? So we have allowed, okay, then the Westerners has colonialized, okay, our culture. And not only that, because we don't have first-hand experience with the Arab culture, okay, although sometimes maybe you go to Umrah, your mother go to Haji, but you believe Arab culture more like the ones you see in Aladdin. Can you understand? Okay, for the Chinese or for the other cultures who has never have direct contact with Arab culture, so then they believe, oh, Arab culture, oh, Aladdin, Princess Jasmine. So then this becomes the lens that is being used by everyone. We don't really understand each other's culture. We understand, for example, I understand Arab culture from the perspectives of the Westerners. Okay? You understand the Chinese or the Arab, or probably, but it's hard for you to understand Malay cultures because we are hardly in any American movie. Okay? But, right? When we talk about, you know, how do I know, what do I know about the Arabs? Mostly from what I see in the media. But unfortunately, the media use what kind of culture and perspective? Western. Okay? All right, so I want to show you this video. Okay, today is video day. So I hope this video can help you better understand, okay, the idea of Orientalism. Hold on. I cannot get out of this space. Hold on, yeah. Hold on, give me a minute. I cannot get out of this place. All right. Okay, can you see this? Are you guys watching the video? Oh, there's no voice. Hold on, yeah. I don't know why there's no sound.
We can't see anything also,
Oh,
madam.
you can't see. Hold on. All right, something wrong. error occur. Okay, let me try again, yeah. If not, you have to watch it via your own classroom lah. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam.
From the beginning of Western speculation about the Orient, the one thing the Orient could not do was represent itself. Evidence of the Orient was credible only after it had passed through the refining fire of the Orientalist work. Edward Syed, Palestinian intellectual, literary theorist, historian of the colonial narrative. Syed explained how colonialism works, not just through armies, but through literature. Not just through conquest, but through anthropology. Not just through oppression, but justified through narrative. He showed how the West painted a picture of the East. Snake charmers, belly dancers, thieves, the exotic, the sensual, the depraved. Syed saw it in 19th century Western literature, and you can see it across modern culture. Switch on the news, read the newspapers, look at the images. What stories are you being told? Us versus them. The rational versus the irrational. Civilization versus barbarism. Africans, corrupt despots, starving victims. Latin Americans, drug lords, football players, dictators. Arabs, terrorists, misogynists. Asians, software engineers, religious fanatics. How does it feel to be fixed, captured, framed? Think of Orientalism as a lens. Use it when you read the media. Spot the stereotype. Decode the fiction. Unlearn the myth.
Okay. All right. So you watched the video. So basically, this is what we mean by Orientalism. Can you please switch off your mic? Okay, never mind. Alright, so never mind. Okay. Anyway, okay, thank you, Faiz. So we were talking, okay, the video just now showed you, okay, what we mean by Orientalism is actually, again, a way of looking at the others, okay, through the lens of the Western colonialists. Okay, here. So this, okay, so Orientalism, okay, when we look at things, okay, we want to try to challenge the bias embedded in the Western consciousness. Okay, so we can see this bias everywhere, not only in classical literatures, you can see it in modern media. Okay, you can see it how they depict the African Americans, for example. Okay, how they depict Black people in the movies, in news. Of course, today there are more inclusiveness. Okay, when we talk about Black person or Black man, of course you have Barack Obama. Okay, but there's only one Obama. But most of the Black images that you see, okay, Black men are usually popular as what? Rappers. Okay, but usually very crazy rappers with gold teeth. Okay, with dreadlocks. Or we see Blacks in films as the, what we call it, the drug addicts. They live in the gutters, okay? Not gutters, the ghetto, sorry, okay? They live in the ghetto. So they are usually depicted as a culture or a group of people that is always less. Can you follow? All right. Or have you ever seen a slave movie about slavery? You know what slavery, right? At one point in America and in Europe, okay, they were really evil people the way they treated the black slaves. You've seen a slavery movie, Django Unchained. Have you watched that movie? Or 40 Years a Slave? Okay,
there was one movie I watched. It was about slaves during the era of Martin Luther King Jr. and they suffered too. I forgot the title of the movie, but it's got something to do with these.
Okay, all right. So Martin Luther King is in the modern times, okay, in the 1960s, okay. They were going through different changes at that time, okay. But okay, when we talk about movies that depict slavery, okay, in the early years, okay, in the 1800s, okay, this tells you what you need to watch movies other than Marvel movies, okay, right? You need to watch movies that is different from superhero or romance movies. But going back to the slavery movies, okay, if you watch them, they will show, for example, how the white people were really evil, okay, abused the black slaves. But in all of this movie, you will always find a white man saving the blacks. So even in a movie that is trying to show the history of slavery, where you cannot deny that how the white people ill-treated the black people, they will always still have an image of a white man, the good white man, okay, that tried to help the slaves. Okay, so here again is an Orientalist idea of how the white man will always have to save the world. There is even a term called white man's burden. Okay, you can Google it up. Okay, the white man's burden. What is this white man's burden? You know, the white man, they have burden. You know burden or not? It's like a problem, an issue they need to solve. The white man burden is the burden they feel that the white man must always save everyone else. That's why they need to colonialize other cultures, because other cultures needs to be saved. Because other cultures are less. Okay? But actually the idea of white man's what we call it burden is similar to Islamic culture also. We all have burden, right? As Muslims, we all need to berdakwah. Okay? So we have that burden as well. But of course, we must be able to differentiate, okay, in difference between, okay, forced colonialism, okay, and religious dawah. Okay, but the ideas are quite similar. Okay? So far, right? Understand? So the Orient was for centuries based upon an intellectual construct that reinforced conditions of inequality. Although we don't see it as something that is forced in terms of, you know, it's written in the literature, it's just in a movie. But actually what this happened is that reinforce, okay, inequality. So Syed successfully argues the nature of cross-cultural discourse needs to be re-examined. Okay, so here he's questioning, that's why we say it's a critical analysis. He questions the literature, he questions the news that we watch, that we as the Orient, we need to question all of the knowledge, all of the information that we have. Can you understand? Right? So the Orient that Syed places in front of the reader is of cultures, traditions, and society polarized by a Western power agenda. Okay, now this is where we take Orientalism, the idea that came from literature, and try to adapt it into a bigger picture when we talk about politics, society, and economy. Okay, that this, when we take this view, then we polarize the world. There is the Western ideas, and then there's the rest of the world. Okay. So cultural growth is denied. Okay, has denied the Orient with progress claimed and administered by the Occident. So point here is, it's hard for us, okay, the Orient, to be successful or to be considered successful because our benchmark has always been placed or has been defined by the Western culture or by the Westerners. Can you follow what I am saying? All right, so like I said just now, in Islam, for example, what is the, not just now, before this, what is the idea of a successful man? Okay, the successful man may be a very happy person who does not make that much money, but he, you know, he is happy in this world, does not do bad things, okay, has strong iman. That is the successful man. But this is not the definition of a successful man according to Western cultures. So here, us as Muslims, when we compare, okay, we see our neighbor, for example, who has a small car, okay, you know, makes small money, but he's very happy. We just see him as an ordinary man. Okay, but we see the other neighbor who has big car, big house, big everything, him we consider the successful man. So this is what we mean as the lens that we use to understand the world. But unfortunately, this lens is biased. All right. Okay, so today we are going to have just a shorter class. Okay, I will stop here today. Okay, because here. All right, is it recording now? Okay, so going back, so I was refreshing about culture, Orientalism. So I guess you need to watch the previous video lah to remember again. Okay, so we were talking about John Smith. Okay, so this John Smith is a legend. He's a real person, but also a legend because there are so many stories created about him. Okay, and among the stories is Pocahontas. Pocahontas, and another one is John Smith and the Three Turks. If you go Google them up, or if you read the books, okay, they will tell the story about how John Smith had traveled and explored, okay, and found himself in these foreign lands. Okay, so he found himself among the Red Indians, and he was captured. Okay, so you see how they drew him, okay, and how they drew the Red Indians. This is what we mean as they look how these, you know, how they paint the Orientalists, okay, or the foreign culture as unique, you know, with a headgear, not wearing any clothes. Can you see here? Okay, but the story here is that he went there. Of course, he wanted to take their land. Okay, but the story does not imply that he is the evil guy that is trying to take a person's land. Okay, the story implies that he is an intelligent person that went there, okay, and had to fight all of these barbaric people. Okay, that's how they depict these people, right? Very barbaric. They kill you with the sword lah, they kill you with whatever. But the Westerners, they use bombs and guns. As if killing with bombs and guns is better than killing with swords and I don't know what you call these other things. Can you understand? Okay, so in the story, John Smith got detained. Okay, he was arrested. Okay, he got caught by the Indians. Okay, but because he was so smart, he managed to get away. And one of the reasons why he got away is because the princess fell in love with him, Pocahontas. Can you see the story here? You know, if you read these stories innocently, okay, some of you maybe have read it, maybe you like classic storybooks, right? When you read it innocently, you just read. You don't sit down and think. Can you get what I'm saying? You just read, oh, it's just another romantic story. Okay, John Smith is a hero that saves a princess. But we don't see the context of the whole story, how it maintains a particular status quo. Okay, how it shows that a particular culture, a particular guy named John Smith, okay, is better than what? As some kind of traditional culture. But isn't this always the story that the princess fell for the legend? Okay, so this princess, Pocahontas, okay, even when her land is being taken over by the Westerners, she fell in love with the Western guy. You get what I'm trying to say here? All right, so this is what we mean by Orientalism, because the story, John Smith, was created by a Western person. Can you see it? And when he writes the story, it is based on his idea, his interpretation, the way he sees the world. But unfortunately, for the rest of the world, we read the book and we only consume these ideas. We don't critically analyze and see this as a problem. Okay? And another story, this John Smith, okay, he's very active. He goes to a lot of places. And another place, okay, supposedly he went to Turkey. Any Turkish students here? Okay? No? So the John Smith and the Three Turks is a classical as well. So the same story, he went, he traveled, he explored, but he was caught by the Arabs. So this is how they drew, okay, the Arabs, okay, were mostly evil. Okay, and they detained John Smith. But again, John Smith was able to free himself. How did he become free? Again, the princess, Turkish princess pula fall in love with him. Okay, so because you know us is as if all these Arabs or Indian princesses, okay, sees that their own kind of men are not smart enough or not handsome enough like John Smith. Okay, so what happened then after that? What is about the Three Turks? When he got away, okay, he managed to kill the Turks. Okay, and if you read the story, there was images of him supposedly beheading, cut off the Turkish person's head. Okay, and he managed to bring his army. Okay, it glorifies. Can you follow what I'm trying to say? Okay, it glorifies John Smith. But in the attempt to glorify John Smith and the Westerners, okay, they had to degrade other cultures. This is the problem. Okay, right? So, what is this? Hold on. So here, so Orientalism is about this contrast between the Westerners and the Easterners. So all of us are here, the Chinese, the Arabs, the Malay, we are here because we are not part of the Occident. So when they categorize us, okay, when they depict and tell a story about us, we are always considered civil. They are the ones who are civilized and we are the one who's not civilized. Can you follow what I am trying to say? Okay, and this you can see that it appears even until today. That any ideas that does not conform to the Western ideas are considered conservative and traditional. Right or not? Okay? So that the Westerners are always the colonizer. They have to be in power. And they will discuss and write about us, the colonized. And they are modern. Okay? When they write about themselves, they are modern. What do you mean modern? They are intellectual, you know, they see things factual. Unlike us, we are mysterious, like the Red Indians. Have you seen the movie Indiana Jones? Okay, I know there's the recent ones, but if you've watched the old ones, okay, you can see, right, when they go traveling and they go into the jungles and they depict, okay, some traditional society, they eat monkey's brain lah. You get what I'm saying? All right? When they go to the Amazon and those people are not wearing clothes, those things are in very contrast to how smart they are. Okay? So it's their job to always bring us, the rest of the society, okay, the rest of the world into the future where they are already at. Okay, so when we see a world like this, okay, then the Westerners would always feel that they are superior. And they have somewhat like a responsibility to turn all of us to be like them. Okay, all right or not? Okay, but like I said, the problem is the Westerners have this thinking, but we tend to adopt the same thinking and we feel inferior of our own culture. Okay. So when we talk about Orientalism, okay, it's in every, not just in the media, okay, it's in every part of life, okay, like education system. Unfortunately, even here in IIUM, most of your textbooks are written by Americans or English or Europeans. Okay, most of our textbooks. And they give examples that relates to them. And when you read, for example, your PR textbooks or Introduction to Mass Communication textbooks, whose examples do they talk about? Them. Whose ideas, whose theories? Theirs. And do we replicate, we follow? Yes. So that is why there is no change. And that is why, okay, they will always be more superior. So now how? No need to go university lah, right? Okay, of course, all right, this is why in UIA especially, you must understand that you are fortunate enough to get different views. Okay, yes, you study Western ideas in Introduction to Communication or in interpersonal communication, all right? But you also get the ideas like here, you understand, oh, what I read and what I study, some can be accepted, some cannot. Right? So if you understand, like for example, in IIUM, we call it Islamization, right? We try, okay? Although not have been very successful, but at least we try, okay? To Islamize some of these Orientalist beliefs. Can you follow? All right? And if you've heard, like for example, some schools like in Oxford, they have a school of Orientalist studies. Okay, this is what they study. Okay, and today in the world that we live in, okay, an Orientalist person is someone who adopts the Orientalist ideas. Okay, Orientalist is not a Western person. Okay, Orientalist is someone who adopts the idea of Orientalism. Can you follow what I'm trying to say? All right. So you can be Muslims, you can be Malay, you can be Arab, but you can also be an Orientalist. That means the way you think, you adopt the same ideas. Okay. All right. Some people see this danger in Orientalism, okay, how it has somewhat also affected the study of Islam. All right, because you have Westerners writing about Islam, isn't it, right? Westerners writing about the Quran. And when you read it, you feel, oh, this Western person is so smart. He understands the Quran, but he is not a Muslim. Okay? So this is somewhat kind of dangerous, okay? Because when someone writes about Islam, but using a non-Muslim interpretation, this can be considered Orientalism. Can you follow? So in the world that you live in today, is very dangerous because you can get really confused. Okay, because you've got lots of information coming from all over the place. And everybody now with social media thinks that they're very smart. Okay, so you've got to be careful and got to be smarter. All right? Okay. So Orientalism was written to show the impact of mystifying the others. I've already discussed this. Mystify. That means make things about the others not clear. Okay? Like all of us, okay? What do we know about, okay, the Indians or the Arabs? Or we know from what we see on television. Okay, in general, Indian people, or we think, or the Indians are like what we see in the Hindustani movies. You know them, but you don't really know them. So it is mystified. Okay, so it's important for us, okay, to realize that this mystification still takes place, and this creates our own biasness. Okay, just like when we talk about African Americans or the blacks, do we really know them, you know, as Asians or an Arab watching the American culture? Do we know about the black people We don't really know them. Okay, but we know them based on the interpretations that we get in the media. And then we create our own biases. Isn't it, right? Okay. So sometimes, okay, these biases, okay, is being used to repeat, okay, in the media today. Okay, in the news. And this would relate to the idea like Islamophobia. Right? So I've already given to you the idea about who's this? Pocahontas and John Smith. Okay. And in Aladdin. Okay. What's the idea in Aladdin, for example? Okay, there's in the introduction lyrics, they say, okay, it's something like, if whoever steals, okay, will get their hands cut. Okay. And then this interprets, okay, Islamic law, Sharia law, or things that are Arabic are very barbaric. Okay, and I'm sure pretty much all of you also, there's a fear when we talk about Sharia, isn't it, right? Okay, that we always think, alamak, if we steal, we cannot just get our hands cut. Okay, there was even in the old days, a Malay politician made a joke that he says if we were to use Sharia in our country, that most people will have no hands. Because most of us would have basically stolen something somewhere, whether we realize it or not realize it. Okay, so we mystify the idea of Sharia and cutting people's hands because actually we fear because we don't understand. We don't know. No, it's not that easy to cut someone's hand if we to truly follow the Islamic law, isn't it, right? Okay, if you, for example, steal a nasi lemak in the morning, does not necessarily mean that they're going to cut off your hand. Okay, there is a levels, but we don't understand. And when we don't understand, we become biased as well. Right? Now, Islamophobia in the media, okay, to relate this idea on Orientalism to our own existence. Okay? So maybe, okay, the Malays, all right, here in this class does not feel really the fear of Islamophobia. Maybe the Arabs would feel it more. Okay? But for the girls wearing the hijab, okay, whose Muslim identity is more obvious compared to a guy whose Muslim identity is not obvious, all right? If you live in the Western countries, for example, you will feel the impact of Islamophobia. Okay? You know what Islamophobia means, right? Phobia, so scared. Scared of Muslims, scared of Islam, scared of Sharia. Okay? So most of the time, why are we scared? We're scared of things that we don't know. And if you are a Westerners living in a Western country, okay, you can't really blame them for having Islamophobia. Because the way Muslims are being portrayed in the Western media especially is very biased. Okay? Yeah. But Islamophobia in the media, okay, you know, there is a, what we call it, an origin. Okay, of course, the Muslims and the Arabs have been portrayed in a something unique way, okay, in an Orientalist way, okay. But modern media, okay, modern media has increased this idea, okay, of this biased reporting of Muslims, okay. And these have become more and more evident and obvious since the 80s and 90s. Since 1970s, like especially after the Cold War. You know, during the Cold War, they were hating on the Russians and the communists. So the rest of the world was scared of communists and Russia. But they have defeated communism. So who's the next? They always need to create the next opponent or the next evil guy. You get what I'm saying? The Westerners or the ones in power, okay, in order to look powerful and in order to look as if they are the savior, they need to create Okay? An opposition or an evil person. Can you see what I'm trying to say? Right? So during the Cold War, the evil person was communism, and then communism down. Who's next? Okay, and some claim it is Muslims and the Islamic countries. Okay, so of course there are many stories. Okay, I'm just going to touch a little bit here and there just to put context so that you Muslim students, okay, would get a better idea about why we are living the world that is so Islamophobic. Alright, so after the war, the Westerners, they need money, they need to maintain their richness, okay? So they found what? They found oil. Do you know oil, right? It's after the steam engine, okay, the change in technology. First it was steam, right? You use the steam train. And then discover steam cannot go so fast, but they discover petrol can do a lot of things. Okay, and petrol and gas can definitely help with technology. So, who's got oil? Who's got petrol? Yes, the US have them. But most of it are in the Middle East. And some African countries as well. And Asia, we have also, but not as much. Okay? So some people have this theory, okay, they argue, okay, that the greed or the struggle for control of oil has brought the Westerners into the Middle East. Okay? And at the same time, it does not help that in the 70s, there was some kind of an Islamic revolution. Have you heard of the Iranian Revolution? Okay? You know, Iran, the country that is, one would say, very unique today, okay, used to be a very, very secular and Western country. Okay, of course, yes, okay, Iran is a Shia country, right? But you can see that they are rather conservative today, right? Okay, and they implement their own version of the Sharia. But not too long ago, okay, in the 70s and 60s, if you were to Google on Iran, you can see that they are very modern, very westernized. Okay, in comparison to the other, okay, they're not really Arab, they're Persian, okay, but compared to the Arab countries. Now, what is the relationship here? Okay, because in the 60s, 70s, okay, in the Middle East and the rest of the world, we're still very underdeveloped. Okay, the Arabs, they have oil, but they don't know what to do with it. Okay, and their leaders, unfortunately, also do not know what to do with it. So they are very rich, but the people are very poor. So what did they do? They allowed the Westerners to come and take the oil, process the oil. Okay, so the Westerners are so happy that they want to control the whole of the Middle East. But some people do not agree. So that's why you have the revolution against the Westerners in the Middle East. Okay, and going back to Iran, this is Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini. Okay, why do I want to refer to him? Because he managed, okay, to fight against the Westerners, okay, the Americans that came to Iran to control Iran, okay. But Ayatollah Khomeini created the Iranian revolution. What happened after the Iranian Revolution? They kicked out all the Americans and they tried to put more control on their own country. So this is not good for the Westerners. Can you follow? It's not good when the origin, okay, or the owner of the land feels strong enough to fight back. Okay? So that is why, okay, you know these people, who's this? Oh, you people are
This is Saddam Hussein,
Saddam Hussein.
the ex-president of Iraq.
Yes. All right, maybe because you're very young, okay? Anyone who's born in the 90s or lived through the 90s would definitely know this guy. Okay, Saddam Hussein. You know this one? Please tell me you do.
Yeah, this is Islam. Osama bin Laden. This is how they
Osama bin Laden.
tried the
Okay.
leader.
All right. Okay. So it appears that most of you are very young. Okay. So you do need this history class. Okay. So Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, Ayatollah Khomeini. So these are big Muslim figures. All right. But anyone who grew up during this time or actually read history would know they are always being painted as evil people in the media. Okay, like here, Saddam Hussein, he was the president of Iraq or Iraq. You know what happened to Iraq? Iraq used to be a modern country also, just like Iran. Okay, and then the Americans came and made Iraq and Iran go to war with one another. And then they created another evil person here, which is Saddam Hussein. The same thing with Osama bin Laden. Who is he? Okay, supposedly he is the terrorist. Okay, what is it? What's the group called in Taliban? All right, in Afghanistan. Okay,
Yes.
he's actually he's Saudi, right?
Yes.
But okay, supposedly what? Okay, he's supposed the one who has calculated the September 11.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is the point that I am trying to say? Okay, that as Muslims growing up in the 90s, okay, you as Muslims also, trust me, when you read the history of these people, you try to Google him up. Try to Google Saddam Hussein. Try to Google Osama bin Laden. Each of these people are being portrayed as terrorists, as dictators, as bad people. I'm not saying they're good people either. I don't know that. All right. But my point is, all right, these people are made to, these images are created so that the rest of the world, when they think about Muslims and when they think about Arabs especially, these are the faces that they see. Can you follow?
Yes, madam.
All right, September 11. You know what September 11, right? Come on.
Yes.
At least, this is one more, right? You don't know Saddam Hussein, you don't know Osama bin Laden, but at least all of you will know September 11, isn't it? When I say September 11, what comes through your mind?
The two towers being exploded.
Doing our image. You were not even born yet, right? Okay, most of you. Some of you were only a baby. But how come you can remember September 11 but cannot remember these people, cannot remember many other things? And September 11 is not really part of your history, but everybody in the world knows about September 11. Why?
Because they make sure of that in the media. It's always there. They always
Sure that everybody remembers. Yes, every year they have anniversary. Every year they show you the images. And every year they remind you of how the Muslim terrorists did the attack. Can you understand? But do they show you the whole story of the event? No. They just talk about, okay, how things happen in the US. Okay, so many people died. Do they talk about how many people died as a result of September 11? 3,000 people died, okay, unfortunately, okay, on September 11 in the US. But after that, the US went to attack all these Middle Eastern countries and almost killed almost 1 million people. But do they talk about that?
Of course not.
No.
No.
But do we also know? We also don't know because we don't care. Why don't we care? Because we are seeing so many other more interesting stories. Can you follow what I am trying to say?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So this is also what we mean as Islamophobia. What we know is defined and dictated, okay, by the West. Our own history we don't know. Can you follow?
Yes, madam.
All right. If you notice also, right, how Muslims are always being made to apologize. All right. Sometimes we become very apologetic Muslims. Okay, we need to apologize because of the attack there, attack here. All right. And you notice how the Japanese, right, they are always being made to apologize as well because of the World War. All right. Yeah, until today, sometimes the president, the Japanese president, would have to make an annual apology. But have you ever seen the Britain or France apologizing for what they have done? Okay, during the war. No. Instead of apologizing, what do? We still see them better than us. We are part of the Commonwealth. Can you hear what I am saying? Right, so this is the issue. And then we see the same Islamophobia in the modern media. Okay, in the news, in pop culture. What do we mean in pop culture? All right, in the films, in the songs, okay, and in literature and in art. We've already discussed this. Okay. So in news, for example, how do they report Muslims? Okay. It's always through stereotyping and generalizations, right? And we've already discussed this in the earliest course, okay, earliest chapter. We talk about there are Muslim societies, which means that we are all Muslims, but we are also very different from one another. Okay, but to the media, Muslims are all just the same, right? Okay, how would they portray a Muslim woman?
Oppressed.
Always oppressed.
Uneducated.
Always uneducated. Right? Why are we oppressed? Because we cover our head.
And our faces sometimes.
And our faces also now. Okay? Why not?
So the men can marry 4 women.
Yeah, marry 4. That one also very sensitive, yeah? Okay? Marry 4. But again, all right, for women, why is it that when a Western woman is being sexualized in the media, they are not considered oppressed? Okay? So there is the stereotyping and generalizations. Okay? There is not enough stories, okay, in the mainstream media that talks about Muslim women who covers themselves up but also is very successful, who are scientists. Can you follow?
Yes.
All right. Why? Because we are expected to follow only one understanding of a successful woman. Okay, that she must look and be like the Western woman. But can we actually say that the Western women are free and happy?
No, not necessarily.
All right. Not necessarily. If you're happy, you can never be happy if you're always trying to achieve materialism, for example. Okay? Here, terrorists, of course, no need to talk about it anymore.
Yes.
Right? And we are also considered barbaric. Okay, you know barbaric, why? We cut people's hand. Okay? Isn't it, right? And in Sharia, they will make big news when someone get, okay, what we call it, hanged, right, in the Aceh especially.
Stoning.
Right, because they apply the Sharia law. Yes, sorry, Khalid? Yeah, they get stoned. Okay. But do they talk about what are the consequences or what about the process leading up to the particular action? You know, in the US, they also have the death penalty, right? And they do it via electric chair.
Yeah.
So although they're trying to get rid of that, and through lethal injection. You know what's lethal injection, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why aren't those considered barbaric as well? Okay. Of course, we are also uncivilized. Yes, although we cannot argue or cannot deny that there are some Muslim societies that are quite barbaric, that are quite uncivilized. There are Muslim women who are being oppressed. We cannot deny that.
But it's not a general situation.
Yes, but that's not the only story. Can you understand what I'm saying? Right, we are uncivilized. Yes, you know, with the stories of child marriage in Pakistan, okay, or how they call it, the rape culture, okay, honor killing. Have you heard of this, right? Honor killing in Afghanistan, in Pakistan. Yes, we don't agree with those. But that does not represent the whole Muslim society. Okay? And not only they stereotype and then they select. They only focus on stories that would usually show us in a bad light. Okay, like wars. Yes, unfortunately, most of the wars are in Muslim countries. Okay, and in the Middle East, they've never found peace. This is what we see. And the story tells us, oh, the Arab people can never live in harmony. They like to fight one another. But the stories don't tell us about how, for example, the Americans that are the ones who are supplying the arms, or the Americans who are supporting the regime. These are the stories we don't get. Okay? Or like the refugee crisis. Yes, Muslims are making up the most of the refugees in the world. Alright? And today, of course, we've got the Syrian refugees. It's unfortunate, okay? But again, the coverage is selective. Okay? Or honor killing, like I mentioned just now. Right? Honor killing. They don't talk about how there are many Muslims who do not agree with this. Okay? So why this stereotyping and generalization, selective coverage, these are all the lens that is being used. Okay? So what can be done? Okay? What can be done? Because sometimes the problem also we have to admit, all right, in this class we're talking about Orientalism, but it does not mean that we should be blaming everything on the West. The Muslims also have an issue, okay? And we too have been so happy to be ignorant, okay, or not being brave enough to challenge what is going on around us. Is this true or not? Okay, how many of you actually sit down and think about, oh, there's Islamophobia, okay? How does this relate to me? How can I control it? Do we think about that?
No.
No. Because we enjoy Netflix so much. Alright? We enjoy Roblox. What else do you play? Among Us. We enjoy it too much. Okay? So it's good that if we are able to educate ourselves and educate the people around us. And especially you, okay, who have studied and are supposed to be the knowledgeable ones, that you share what you know. Okay? That when you read certain content or when you watch the news, you can say, oh, this is not right. That this is very biased. Okay? And there needs to be alternative and citizens media coverage. Means what? There needs to be an alternative to Netflix. There needs to be an alternative to what you are consuming. Okay, of course you say, oh, there have been Islamic programs and mostly they're boring. So we cannot stop at saying they're boring. There must be a way. Okay? And then research, because research means that there is always this interest to investigate and to question and to criticize what we see around us. Okay? For example, okay, claims that Western medias are always considering us as terrorists. We can just say it, but if there is no evidence, no one's going to study about it, how can we make constructive, suggestions? Okay? So the idea of Muslims being terrorists, studies have shown, okay, the problem is because our own local media does not take a stand. You know, in Malaysia or in Indonesia, in many Muslim countries, they only buy the news from the news agencies. You know, from Reuters, from AP. And when Reuters write, the Muslim terrorists killed 10 people in the US. What do our local newspaper do?
Copy paste the news.
They don't even correct it. They don't make their own investigation. Okay? So you need researchers to tell you, oh, this is what is happening and changes must be done. Okay, and of course, there must be media policies. Yes, we have always been told, especially when young people will think media freedom is important, isn't it, right? Okay, but the idea of too much freedom is very liberal. And this is again, okay, whenever we have ideas or rules that does not conform with the West, it is considered bad. But who says rules and laws are bad? Sometimes it is there to protect. So there must be some policies that can protect local cultures. Okay? Even some Western countries are protecting themselves from American invasion. You know, in Canada, you don't even know how to differentiate Canada and America, right? They have almost the same culture. But even in Canada, they have a media policy that would not allow more than, I'm not sure, is it 40% of American content? That means on their TV, they will make sure that 60% is their own produced content. Why? To protect their own industry. Okay? And then we too must have a Muslim transparent media. What do we mean by Muslim transparent media? There's so many Muslim media, right? But even the Muslim medias are usually supporting the status quo. That means they're supporting their government, they're supporting some rich person, and they're not telling the truth. Okay, so these are just examples of what can be done, okay, in relation to media, okay, in terms of how to combat Islamophobia. Okay, so our course is confined to media, but the idea is Islamophobia is definitely much bigger. Okay. So, but like I said just now, when we talk about Islamophobia, okay, when we talk about Islamophobia and relating it to Orientalism, okay, can we say that there is Islamophobia among Muslim societies? That as Muslims, we too have fear about Islam. Do you have it? Yes? No? Don't know. What are you talking about, madam?
I think there is, madam, because some Muslims even left Islam.
Yes? Alright, Muslims who
Yeah, I think that because they are ex-Muslims, so maybe the Muslim itself has Islamophobia because they are born into Islam.
Yes. Alright. There's some who are born into Islam, wants to leave the religion, okay? Because they also face the fear of getting their freedom. You know, the thing with Islam, many things is that we don't have much freedom. Okay? But what about yourself? You know, it's always good to reflect how this relates to you. Do you have Islamophobia? Yes,
I think it depends on individual awareness about Islam and a deep understanding of what really Islam is, and that you are a Muslim not only because you were born a Muslim, but when you grow, when you grown and you started reading and watching, you started investigating more in depth Islamic values, Islamic teachings, so you understand what you believe, what you're living. So I think such people with that mentality are much harder to be affected by Islamophobia. They're more able to defend and to present the real idea, which unfortunately is not that famous among Muslims these days.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay, like it's argued just now, right? If you have enough knowledge, understanding, okay, it is among the best weapon against Islamophobia.
Yes.
Right? But Islamophobia today, okay, is very powerful because it's all around us, but sometimes we don't realize it, okay? And I'm very concerned because Muslims also, okay, among Muslim societies, there is this, what we call it, very significant impact of Islamophobia. In what sense? Okay, for example, if I ask these Malaysian students today, okay, do you want Sharia law? You want to apply Sharia law in our country tomorrow? Okay, get ready. Tomorrow is Sharia law. Many would have to, some would argue no, some would have to just seek first. They would not say absolutely yes. Because why? Because even myself, I'm talking about, right? Because we don't have full understanding. What we see of Sharia is what is being presented in the media. So we fear, okay, of the law that has been dictated upon us. Fear, right?
Yes.
Okay, and sometimes we are being Muslim apologetics. We apologize. Okay, I'm sorry lah if I have to pray here. Are you okay? You get what I'm saying? Sometimes when you work, all right, I'm sorry I have to pray here. So these are issues, okay, that we need to think about. Okay, Islamophobia among Muslim societies. But on the other hand, there is also the fear of Anglophobia. What is Anglophobia? So many phobias today. Anglophobia, Islamophobia is fear of Islam, right? Anglophobia is fear and hatred of the Westerners. Okay, some Muslims are so extreme, they hate the Westerners so much also, which becomes also racist and biased. Can you follow?
Yeah.
Alright,
Yes.
so that is equally dangerous. That's why they go there and they try to bomb themselves. And that's another whole issue as well. Okay. Alright, so that is the last slide. Is there any more slide? No, that's the last slide for this semester. Right? Any questions with regards to the topic Orientalism?
No, madam. I think you made it loud and clear.
Okay, thank you, Rata. Okay, so I hope, okay, you have benefited from this course. Okay, this is a course that may not be practical in nature. Okay, even with myself, I kept the girls in all black attire, the scarves. Okay, all right, it's not really to be considered Islamophobia. Okay, but there is some kind of biasness. Okay, that can also be considered an Arab phobia. All right, or maybe you are just scared of the color black. Are you scared of the color black? Okay, but yes, okay, sometimes we get a bit scared, okay, in terms of that. And if one more, but I didn't find the record lecture for the topic. What topic? Western media. Oh, I've not shared about cultural imperialism. Okay, I will chat on that. All right, don't worry. Before the finals, all the videos could be up. Okay, yes, that could be somewhat Islamophobia or fear of the Arabs. Like I say, some sisters, if you get stuck in the elevator with a truly tall, big, strong, hairy Arab man, will you get scared? You are considered scared and somewhat phobic, Arab phobic. If you are fear thinking, oh, this guy is going to be a terrorist, this guy is a typical terrorist Arab man, then yes. Okay, and you asked me just now, is it Islamophobic if you are fearful of sisters in black? If you are fearful of that sister because you think, oh, that is a sister who has very rigid ideas, okay, who is very, what we call it, timid, and then yes. But if you're just scared of her because you don't like black color, then that's a different thing. Okay? All right. Anything else?